Yeah, you hear too, but you saw the buses are online.
Thank you.
These microphones are like real direct.
Okay.
So if you turn the other way, you may not hear anything.
Okay, yeah, so you can right up to him. Hare Krishna, dear Prabhus and Mataji, children, Haribol. So, as normal, we'll sing Jaya Radha Madhava. Jaya Radha Madhava, Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava, Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yashoda Nandana Braja Janaranjana. Yashoda Nandana Braja Janaranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Girivardhari. Yashoda Nandana Braja Janaranjana. Yashoda Nandana Braja Janaranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Jaya Radha Madhava, Kunja Bihari. Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to Sri Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. So it's nice to be here with everybody. Hare Krishna. It's a wonderful temple here in Miami. Very nice. And let's see. I chose the verse because, you never know. I was thinking maybe primarily people, when Mataji asked, has anybody been here for the first time? And actually, we're all devotees, I see more. So that's nice too. So anyway, I kind of wanted to start just by a little, the verse deals with freedom. And I just wanted to ask if a few devotees might want to chime in. What do you think of when you think of freedom? What sort of concepts come to mind? Yes. There you go. Possibility of doing whatever you want. That's definitely a good definition. What's another one? There's a young man there. What do you think? What comes to your mind when you think of freedom? Happiness? It's a very good definition. But the U.S. here, they had, was it life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, right? They were striving for different types of freedom that they felt they didn't have where they came from in Europe, so they were trying to free things up a bit. So happiness was one of their ideas. Somebody else? Mataji. We're not held down or controlled by... Yes, we're getting to the Krishna's definitions there. We have some others? Yes, Prabhu. Very good. Freedom from suffering so that we can become happy. Yeah, very good. And I've always kind of been into history, and at this point I have to say it's almost like I'm trying to stop reading history. All my life I've enjoyed reading history, but after a while you see so much of it is one group of people exploiting another group of people, and other groups of people wanting freedom from that exploitation, right? So yeah, it's a very good definition. We want to be free. So yeah, so those are all really good understandings you've all shared. Thank you. So now we can read the verse where Lord Krishna talks about this concept also. So let's see. Here we are. Bhagavad-gita as it is. Oh, thank you. Oh, thank you. So this is chapter 2, contents of the Gita summarized. And we're going to read from text 64. And I'm not free from cataracts, so I got to change glasses. The aging process, our freedom becomes progressively diminished, I've noticed, as I've reached my 60s. So, do we normally chant it together? Okay. Please repeat. Raga Dvesha Vimukhtaistu Vishaya Indriyaishcharam Atma Vasyar Videyatma Rasadam Adhigachati. Please check. Raga Dvesha Vimukhtaistu Vishayan Indriyaishcharam Atma Vasyar Videyatma Prasadam Adhigachati. Raga Dvesha Vimukhtaistu Vishaya Indriyaishcharam Atma Vasyar Videyatma Prasadam Adhikachati. Raga Dvesha Vimukhtaistu Vishayan Indriyaishcharam Atma Vasyar Videyatma Prasadam Adhikachati. Raga Dvesha Vimukhtaistu Vishaya Indriyaishcharam Atma Vasyar Videyatma Prasadam Adhikachati. Anyone else? Raga Dvesha Vimukhtaistu Vishayan Indriyaishcharam Atma Vasyar Videyatma Prasadam Adhikachati. So now we can do the word meaning. Raga, attachment. Dvesha, detachment. Vimuktai, by one who has been freed from such things. To, but. Vishaya, sense objects. In the eye, by the senses. Shara, acting. Oh, sorry. Yeah, sometimes the the digital ones are a little different than the book. So I apologize. Atmavashai, one who has control over. Vidheyatma, one who follows regulated freedom. Prasadam, the mercy of the Lord. Adhigachati, attains. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. So this translation might be slightly different than the one on the film. Oh, sorry. So bear with me. One who can control his senses by practicing the regulated principles of freedom can obtain the complete mercy of the Lord and thus become free from all attachment and aversion. Feel free to read whatever you feel. Oh, you're just going to purpose?
Well,
That's fine.
it's a little bit different.
Yeah, I guess this is the older version. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. It is already explained that one may externally control the senses by some artificial process, but unless the senses are engaged in the transcendental service of the Lord, there is every chance of a fall. So a little quiz. Who knows that verse? It's about 5 verses before this one. It is already explained that one may externally control the senses by some artificial process, but unless the senses are engaged in the transcendental service of the Lord, there is every chance of a fall.
See the verses about about like
You
not
say it?
waiting on those attachments.
Nice. Yeah, that's one section. And there's a nice verse, text 59. It says, let me get back to it. It's, the embodied soul may be restricted from sense enjoyment, though the taste for sense objects remains. But ceasing such engagements by experiencing a higher taste, he is fixed in consciousness. So back to today's booklet, sorry for that. Although the person in full Krishna consciousness may apparently be on the sensual plane, because of his being Krishna conscious, he has no attachment to sensual activities. The Krishna conscious person is concerned only with the satisfaction of Krishna and nothing else. Therefore, he is transcendental to all attachment. If Krishna wants, the devotee can do anything which is ordinarily undesirable. And if Krishna does not want, he shall not do that which he would have ordinarily done for his own satisfaction. So what's the classic example, exemplified by the Bhagavad-gita at this point? That for Krishna's service, one might do something one wouldn't ordinarily do. Arjuna. For his own happiness, he would not have fought in the battle of Kurukshetra. But for the service of the Lord, after hearing Bhagavad-gita, he was very enthusiastic to carry out the Lord's order. Right? And therefore, he is transcendental to all attachment. If Krishna wants, the devotee can do anything which is ordinarily undesirable. And if Krishna does not want, he shall not do that which he would have ordinarily done for his own satisfaction. Therefore, to act or not to act is within his control, because he acts only under the direction of Krishna. This consciousness is the causeless mercy of the Lord, which the devotee can achieve in spite of his being attached to the sensual platform. So read the translation again. One who can control his senses by practicing the regulated principles of freedom can obtain the complete mercy of the Lord and thus become free from all attachment and aversion. Kind of, it's interesting how sometimes in Krishna consciousness we find some things can be a little counterintuitive, at least those of us that weren't raised as devotees like myself. Sometimes what seemed to be normal for us as we enter into the philosophy and the lifestyle of Krishna consciousness, we find that it's somewhat counterintuitive. And this is one of those examples. I know when I was young, like before I met the devotees, I also felt that freedom was to be able to do whatever you want, wherever you want, whenever you want, and perhaps as long as you're not hurting anybody too bad, But we had that concept of freedom, and it was being reinforced by just about every media outlet, every song, every movie, right? This concept that, we can be free, and we can be free by fully satisfying the demands of our mind and senses whenever, wherever, however, right? Some of the catchphrases like, if it feels good, do it, right? Things like that, at some point in the last 20, 30 years, they had the phrase, the me generation, right? It's all about me, what makes me feel good at this moment, in this way. So, that consciousness was very much there in the modern materialistic society, right? People are under the impression, and they're being led by the leaders of society, they're being led into rampant sense gratification, into the conception that the more I gratify my senses, the more I become happy, right? But Srila Prabhupada explains that the reality of this is that we're becoming more, by this engagement with the illusory energy, by trying to be the enjoyer and the controller of Krishna's energy, this material energy, rather than becoming the winner or becoming happy, we become, Prabhupada says, more and more entangled in her complexities, right? And that entanglement in her complexities means that we are becoming entangled in the cycle of birth and death, of reincarnation, being driven by time and karma, the reactions to our activities. And this cycle has been going on for such a long time, and it is going on at present, and it will be going on eternally until we actually accept these lessons from Krishna, where Lord Krishna actually teaches us, just like Srila Prabhupada explains in the purport, that a devotee may appear to be acting on the sensual plane, right? We are not performing some kind of austerity, which is just based on giving things up. That's not actually our bhakti process, right? We give up certain activities that are very detrimental to spiritual growth, eating of meat, gambling, intoxication, illicit sex, right? And we replace those with the proactive activities of hearing, chanting, remembering the Lord's names, qualities, forms, pastimes, and as mentioned here, prasadam, just like we're all assembled here. It was here in Miami that Srila Prabhupada, I believe, was sitting in the backyard of that place in Coconut Grove. And he said, practically speaking, all my devotees have come from prasadam. And he turned to Abhiram, the NTP, and said, isn't that so, Abhiram? He said, yes, Prabhupada. And he kind of went around. Were you there, Prabhu? You were there. Yeah, wonderful. So that happened right here in Miami, and Srila Prabhupada was showing us the importance of prasadam. And of course, prasadam comes in many forms. And in this verse, Lord Krishna is showing prasadam means the mercy of the Lord, and that mercy comes in many ways. And in what was for me a counterintuitive way, the Lord's mercy is coming in the form of giving us a process where we can learn to regulate our senses and regulate our mind and regulate our activities. And Lord Krishna is so sure that this will deliver us from material suffering that he explains that these are the principles of freedom. We're thinking freedom means, again, to run anywhere, to go anywhere, to do anything, to meet up with anybody, right? But actually, this is not freedom. And this is keeping us entangled deeper and deeper and darker into the bowels of the material energy. And this place is really deep and it's really dark. I mean, we happen to be sitting on a middle planetary system. And here we have suffering, just like Mataji had great suffering. A devotee in our congregation passed away in an accident. For a parent, what could be more gripping than losing a child? I'm a parent. I can't even imagine their grief, and they offer our humblest condolences. So we have experience of suffering in this world, and we also have experience of pleasure, of happiness, sometimes even almost heavenly happiness, right? There's joy and there's sorrow. This is the middle planetary system. But we can dig ourselves deeper and deeper through karmic activities where we can go to planets where it's all suffering, right? This material world, Lord Krishna certifies it. He says, Dukkhalayam ashashvatam. It's temporary and it's full of miseries. He says from the top to the bottom, anywhere we go in this material world, it's temporary and it's full of miseries, right? So Lord Krishna is so kind, he's explaining that if we regulate our senses, if we regulate our mind, we can become free from this suffering of material existence. And then we can experience the real freedom that every soul is hankering for at the core of our being. Right? We are meant to love. We are meant to love. And Lord Krishna, he is the reservoir of all loving exchanges. One place Srila Prabhupada says, if we accept Krishna as our lover, they'll never leave. If we accept him as our parent, he'll never die. If we accept him as our children, he'll never grow up and go away, like that. Lord Krishna is always there. Suvidam Sarvabhutanam. He is the best, well-wishing friend of every living entity. Su Hridam, meaning he's sitting right in our heart. Sometimes we talk about our heart, our heartfelt feelings. Well, Lord Krishna is such a friend that he accompanies us on our whole sojourn in this material world, and he sits right in our heart. He's making the arrangements for us, for all of our desires to be fulfilled, but he's just waiting for us to become tired of this material rat race and to turn towards him and ask him for guidance, ask him for shelter. He's just waiting for that moment. And he explains that when one does that, he immediately makes arrangements for them to be sheltered at his lotus feet. There's that beautiful pastime in the Ramayana when the brother of Ravana, the king of the demons, there's about to be a war. So suddenly one of the enemy's great generals comes flying up, and he's hovering in the sky, and he's telling the monkey generals, I've come to surrender to Ram. And they're like, yeah, right, sure, you're a spy. You're just trying to infiltrate our ranks so that you can get close and cause some mischief. So then they come and they tell Ram that Vibhishan has arrived. And Ram, he takes counsel from his generals, right? So he asks them, one after the other, what do you think? Should we accept him? And most of the monkey generals are saying no for different reasons. But then Hanuman speaks up. And Hanuman has actually already known Vibhishan, because Hanuman, as we know, he went to Lanka and he penetrated the city and he did all kinds of wonderful damage. He made it very well known that Ravana's kidnapping Sita was a big, big mistake, right? And then he allowed himself to be captured and he was dragged into Ravana's court. And when Ravana wanted to do something that was against the codes of Dharma to Hanuman, Vibhishan immediately spoke up and said, no, brother, you cannot do this like that. He is a messenger. He cannot be killed. You can do this, you can do that, but you can't kill him. So anyway, Hanuman had a very favorable impression of Vibhishan. So he told Ram, no, you should accept him. And then Ram made his decision. And he turned to all these monkey generals that were ready to fight a whole war to risk everything for him. And he said, try to understand, if anyone surrenders unto me, saying, my dear Lord, I am surrendering to your lotus feet, he becomes my ward, and I protect him at all times, in all places, and under all circumstances. I am accepting Vibhishan, right? So this is the Lord's eternal vow, that if we surrender to the shelter of his lotus feet, if we say, my dear Lord, I am yours. I was reading one of the nice books the devotees distribute a lot, The Journey of Self-Discovery. And Srila Prabhupada was speaking in, I think it was Northeastern University. And he was explaining the Maha Mantra to this group of students. And then he was giving a description of the meaning of the mantra. And it was very, very beautiful. He explained about Srimati Radharani. She is the energy of Lord Krishna. And he explained how everything that we are experiencing is the energy of Lord Krishna. And she is the Lord's internal energy personified, right? So through her, we can come to him. And then he explains who Krishna is. And then he says, so when we chant Hare Krishna, we are calling out, my dear Lord Krishna, O energy of the Lord Srimati Radharani, please pick me up. Please pick me up. I've been rotting in this material existence for so long. Please pick me up and place me at the shelter of your lotus feet. Srila Prabhupada explained it like that. So beautiful, right? So Lord Krishna is giving us this opportunity. And he's making it so easy. In the 9th chapter, he explains very, very practically how we can live in this world. And as Prabhupada says here a couple times, devotee appears to be engaging on the sensual platform. Yes, we are using our senses, but we're being taught to use our senses in the service of the Lord. And then the very activities which previously were causing us bondage, now they can become the cause of our freedom from bondage. Lord Krishna says, If one offers me with love and devotion a leaf, a flower, a fruit, or some water, I will accept it. And then he expands it. He says, all that you do, all that you eat, all that you give away, as well as all austerities that you may perform, should be done as an offering unto me. In this way, you will be liberated from the reactions, our karma. In this way, you'll be liberated from the reactions to all of your good and evil deeds. And by this principle of renunciation, by offering everything to Krishna, you'll be liberated and come to me. So this is very, very practical process. Is there anybody here who doesn't eat every day? Please raise your hand. Is there anybody here who doesn't, do all these things, right? Every day we are doing everything that Krishna mentioned. We are preparing meals. We are working. We are engaging in some type of service to others. We are engaging in some type of worship. We may be worshiping movie stars, football players. But Lord Krishna says, if you take all of these natural tendencies and you offer them to me, then just by putting Krishna in the center of our lives in all the practical ways, he's not saying you have to leave your family and go to a cave in the Himalayas. That was another age. He's not saying that we have to do that. And who could do that, right? I have one friend, this is many years ago, but just before he met the devotees, he was trying to follow a spiritual path. And he went away from the city and he went out to the country and he climbed up a big hill or a mountain and he found a little rock to perch on and he was going to meditate. And right as he got there, all of a sudden he heard some and he looked up and one of those planes was flying over with a drink Coca-Cola banner, and he kind of realized, in this age, we just can't get away from this stuff, Kali Yuga, it's a very bizarre abode, right? So Lord Chaitanya has given us this process, which is so easy. When Lord Chaitanya, we were reading the other day, because it was Lord Nityananda Prabhu's appearance, and when Lord Chaitanya began the Sankirtan movement, right? After Lord Nityananda came to Navadvip and they had their meeting, and then up to that point, basically, Lord Chaitanya had inaugurated the Sankirtan movement, but it was at Srivasangam, and only pure devotees were allowed in, right? For 1 year, they had these nocturnal kirtans all night in Srivas Thakur's house. But he was just churning the mellows of Krishna Nam with the pure devotees, and no one else was allowed to come in. And then by and by, Lord Nityananda arrived in Navadvip, and then they had their famous meeting at Sri Ashojan, Nandanacharya's house. And anyway, then Lord Chaitanya, at that time, the Sankirtan movement began to go out, and he told Lord Nityananda, Bhaja Krishna, Bolo Krishna, Koro Krishna Shiksha, right? Worship Krishna, chant Krishna's names, and follow Krishna's instructions as they're given in the Bhagavad-gita and the Srimad Bhagavatam. And he told his preachers, Lord Nityananda, headed by Lord Nityananda and his partner, Haridas Thakur. He told them, all the preaching teams, led by Lord Nityananda and Haridas, go door to door and beg everyone, Bolo Krishna, Bhaja Krishna, Koro Krishna Shiksha. So in this way, the Sankirtan movement began. Such an easy thing, right? Worship Krishna, chant Krishna's names, and study Krishna's Bhagavad-gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. So simple, right? The process we've been given. But if we take advantage of this process, then very naturally we will attain this freedom, because this process directly enlivens the soul. It goes to the core of our being, right? By this process of hearing about, chanting about, remembering and worshiping Lord Krishna, we, the soul, the eternal being, who has an eternal relationship with Krishna, who is meant to engage in loving devotional service to Lord Krishna, that true understanding of ourselves is awakened by these processes. These are the processes. As simple as they are so enlivening that the more we do that in the association of devotees, right? Lord Krishna says in the 10th chapter, the thoughts of my pure devotees dwell in me, their lives are fully surrendered to my service, and they derive great satisfaction and bliss from constantly enlightening one another and conversing about me. So Lord Krishna has given us this process because he knows that this process will bring us to the stage of existence of pure Krishna consciousness, which is our natural state of consciousness. And seeing the difficulties that we face in this dark age of Kali, he has come in the form of his most merciful incarnation, Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Lord Nityananda, Sri Sri Gaur Nitai. They've come along with their associates of the Panchatattva. Lord Krishna brought the storehouse of love when he came 5,000 years ago, but except for the Vrijavasis and the Pandavas and the Dwarkavasis, nobody really broke open that storehouse of love. We read Krishna book. Of course, a lot of devotees were surrendering to the Lord, but half the people were coming to fight with him, right? It wasn't like everybody got it, right? So Lord Krishna brought this storehouse of love, but it remained sealed. So now he comes as Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda to give us this process of hearing and chanting and remembering the Lord's names, forms, qualities, and pastimes. And by doing so, that storehouse of love is broken open. And by tasting that love for the Lord, our desire to engage in his loving devotional service just wells up in the heart and just increases more and more and more. And the magic is that the more we associate with other devotees, the more that disease spreads amongst all of us. Like, so this is the epidemic that we actually need, is this epidemic. There was a nice thing, and they had the, I think it was 1968 maybe, but Prabhupada had only been in the country a couple of years, and they had the Hong Kong flu. Anyway, it was a Hong Kong flu. We're more familiar with flus now because they had one a few years ago, but they had one called the Hong Kong flu in the 60s. And Prabhupada was pretty new in America. And anyway, everybody was, getting a shot or whatever. I know this is a controversial topic, and I'm not taking a stand on this one. But anyway, somehow devotees took Prabhupada there, and apparently he got a shot. But his take on it was like, right after that he was speaking, and he was saying, yes, this flu was going around, and we got a vaccine to protect us. He said, similarly, Lord Chaitanya has brought the vaccine of the holy names of Krishna to deliver us from this horrible disease of ignorance in this age of Kali Yuga. So Srila Prabhupada just immediately Krishnized everything, right? But this is the actual fact. If we take advantage of these regulative principles of freedom, if we take this devotional lifestyle seriously, if we understand the deep value of the human form of life. Sometimes we sing bhajans by great acharyas like Narottam Das Thakur, Bhakti Vinod Thakur, right? These great devotees. And we see so often they're taking our part. And very often we see that they're lamenting that I have received this rare human birth, but I didn't take advantage of it. I didn't fully surrender to worshiping Radha Krishna. And now I'm at the end of my life, and what shall become of me, right? So they're taking this mood, right, to instruct us. Though it's also a fact that the deeper one goes into their Krishna consciousness, the smaller they feel. This is an amazing thing. Like when you read these works of the acharyas, it's not hyperbole. They feel that way. They feel that way. I'll tell you a nice story. There's a nice devotee named Kirtiraj Prabhu. Many of you probably know him. He lives in Alachua. And he's an early devotee and a disciple of Prabhupada. So we lived in Alachua for a while, and one day he told me a story that when he was serving in Los Angeles at the BBT, and Srila Prabhupada, as we know, spent a lot of time in LA. He set up LA as kind of the model temple. And then he would bring leaders from other temples there and say, this is how we want to set up the programs. And so he spent a good bit of time there. Actually, at that time, Prabhupada at one time called it his world headquarters before Sridham Mayapur. So anyhow, Kirtiraj was there serving, and Prabhupada had a darshan room. And every afternoon he would come and give darshan. And people would come, and sometimes they would bring people from outside, and sometimes it would just be devotees. But anyway, one day he came a little early, and he was the only person there, and then Prabhupada came in, I guess a little early before anybody. So he immediately offered dandavats, and when he stood up, Srila Prabhupada was right in front of him. And he said, Srila Prabhupada looked him dead in the eyes and said, I wasted so much time. And as a good disciple, Kirtiraj Prabhu said, he immediately, said, no, but Prabhupada, you did this, you're doing the Bhagavatam, you're saving the world, all true. And then Prabhupada looked him dead in the eye a second time and said, I wasted so much time. And Kirtiraj Prabhu said again, he tried to, no, but Prabhupada. And then Prabhupada said it a third time. And then he said, at that point, he knew that this was very deep. And so he didn't say anything. So we understand this grave mood of the pure devotee is that every second is so valuable. This human form of life is like the boat to cross over the ocean of material existence. And the spiritual master is the captain. And the Vedic literatures are like the favorable breezes blowing the sails. And if we sincerely take advantage of this, if we realize that, what does Govindadas say? Our life is like a drop of water on a lotus leaf, right? And what's interesting about that, once you start looking at lotus leaves, is they're not porous. Lotus leaves are far out because the water drops on them. Some kind of leaves it might sink in, but a lotus leaf is just like shiny, and like the water just, the slightest little vibration and that water is just going to run off, right? It's like putting it on plastic or something, it's just like it doesn't have any absorption. So he's saying like that, our human life, it's like a drop of water on a lotus leaf. At any moment it can roll off. So we should value this human form of life, and we should be unlimitedly grateful that Srila Prabhupada, at the age of 69, going on 70, a time when all of us are praying that we can retire to Sri Vrindavan Dham, Srila Prabhupada left Sri Vrindavan Dham on the order of his spiritual master to carry out the order of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, that this Krishna consciousness would be spread to every town and village of the world. So we should be so grateful that Srila Prabhupada, one time he told some devotees, you do not know how much ecstasy I was experiencing in Vrindavan. For a pure devotee to be in Vrindavan is inconceivably wonderful. But he left that Vrindavan to bring Vrindavan to all of us, to give us the chance. Jai Shri Shri Radha Braj Bihari, Shri Shri Gaurnitai, Lord Jagannath, Lord Baladev, Subhadra, Srila Prabhupada, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. So we should be so grateful that Srila Prabhupada left that eternal loving Dham where he was with his beloved Lord Krishna, and he brought these teachings, and he spent years and years writing these books so that we could take this seriously, right? So important. Lord Chaitanya gave us this process of chanting Hare Krishna. If that's all we do, that's fine. But just to convince us, and I'll end with this, I see the time is there. At Philadelphia Ratha Yatra, Srila Prabhupada, they danced from the Liberty Bell to the Art Museum, which was quite a ways. And then there was a whole field with thousands of people, and Srila Prabhupada's Vyasasan was up on top of the steps. The Art Museum in Philadelphia is a mock-up of the Parthenon. It's like the most amazing building in Philadelphia. And Lord Jagannath was on the top step, and Prabhupada was right below him on the Vyasasan. Anyways, very, very beautiful. And so there were thousands of people there, and Srila Prabhupada spoke so beautifully. And he was explaining to them that what you just saw, your boys and girls dancing and chanting in total ecstasy for the last couple hours, you can experience too if you just chant Hare Krishna. Please chant Hare Krishna. We have our temple, you can come and visit us. And then he said, but if you need to be convinced, we have written 50 books just to convince you, like that. So Srila Prabhupada worked so hard to give us this process that we can take advantage of. So we should do everything we can to mold our lives in this process. So I apologize if I went too long, and thank you very much. Is there time for any discussion, or did I go too long? Anybody have any comments or discussion? Prabhu. I think so. I remember one place when he came back to Bengal, people were digging up the roads to get the dirt to put on their heads and stuff, you know. I mean, it was like people were doing whatever they could to get close to Lord Chaitanya. Yeah. Thank you. Anything else? Prabhu? Yes. Mm. Right. Well, that's, you know, when Lord Chaitanya was in South India, and I believe the devotee was named Kurma Brahmana, but he spent a few days at a devotee's house, and the devotee, of course, became very enlivened. And then as Lord Chaitanya was leaving, he was ready to jump ship and leave his family behind and chase after Lord Chaitanya. And Lord Chaitanya said, no. He said, Yari Deki Tarika Krishna Upadesh, Amara Agyaya Hana Guru Taridesh. He said, you stay right here in your place, but everywhere you go, everyone you meet, tell them about Krishna as it's explained in the Bhagavad-gita and the Srimad Bhagavatam. In this way, you become a spiritual master and try to liberate everyone in this land. And that doesn't mean one has to sit on the giant Vyasasan and that, but it means repeat what we're hearing from Prabhupada, right? Like these programs like Bhakti Vriksha, Namhata, so nice, because we all have friends. Let's say we're working outside, we have people we work with. We can invite them to our home, we can feed them prasadam, we can share some kirtan, we can share some gita, we can, like that, right? So all of us have to become spiritual masters in the sense of sharing Srila Prabhupada's teachings and sharing the holy names with those around us. And it's actually very easy. One may do it by cooking, one may do it by speaking, one may do it by singing, right? But we all have some way that we're naturally inclined to serve the Lord, and we can share that with the people around us. And that way, we become more and more enlivened. Prabhupada gave a nice example that if your cup is, you have a cup of milk, and if it's full, that's nice, but if some dark ink could fall in there and contaminate it. But if your cup is not only full, but it's constantly being filled, just envision a cup of milk, but there's a pitcher of milk pouring into it, and the milk is flowing over the sides. Even if some contaminant came in, it would just immediately wash out. So the more we absorb ourselves, again, in hearing, chanting, remembering, and sharing Krishna consciousness, it's very easy for us to maintain that enthusiasm. Is that okay? Thank you. And I don't want to keep everybody from the real prasad. Should we end? Yes. Thank you all. Hare Krishna, glories to Srila Prabhupada.